get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agent success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Hey guys, before we jump in, this episode is brought to you by the Transportation Intermediaries Association, the only trade association exclusively representing the 3PL industry. We talk about risk management every single week on this show. Chameleon carriers, strategic theft, brokers are under a microscope like never before. This is why you need the TIA in your corner. The TIA isn't just about networking. They provide a powerful voice in Washington, the best legal frameworks in the business, and a community that holds the line on ethics and excellence, not to mention valuable certifications. They do the work so you can scale securely and with confidence. The Transportation Intermediaries Association, connecting freight, powering the supply chain. Don't operate on an island. Join the elite. Go to tianet.org and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I always love talking with entrepreneurs. As somebody who's trying to build up their business and their dreams, having individuals come on this show who are years and years and years ahead of me, it just brings such a different level of insight to you guys who are also out there trying to build it up. Because although there's a lot of chaos that seems to be going on right now, it's always going to be chaotic in some sort. And we got to find that solution out there no matter what. That's why people work with us. That's why our customers work with us. So we're going to break down a lot of that today. And I would like to welcome Mr. Lynn Gravley onto the show. Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
You know, I'm really looking forward to this. I know we've chatted last week, and hearing your speech out at TIA Capital Ideas Conference this year. You're now the chairman and really running that. It was like I was telling you on Friday. It's kind of like a calm in the storm was that message that I kind of got from you on that, and it just came to me. It just comes from the experience of you leading organizations and going through chaos throughout your career.
Well, Chris, I wish it were that way. Are you familiar with the adage of the duck? The duck looks really calm above the water, but underneath his feet are paddling. So our industry's facing a tremendous number of challenges. So I'm pleased to hear that I came across calm. But we've got a lot ahead of us. But certainly we're ready for it, and certainly we'll tackle it head on. But it's not easy.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And so let's go back to the kind of the beginning, Lynn. Like I always like asking entrepreneurs this: what was it that made you say, you know what, I'm going to go out there and build something on my own? What made you want to go out there and plant your flag and try and go after your dreams?
Now, I'm happy to tell you that, and it's a very unusual story. So with a freshly minted biology degree from North Texas State University, I got a job with a really good chemical company. Worked for them for 6 months, worked for them for 3 months, got married, and then had newly married a lovely wife, 38 years married. After being married for 3 months, I got a notice that the company was selling the company. They were firing every employee because a company from overseas wanted our products. And so for a few months, I tried to find another job. And all through high school and college, I grew up in a rural area, and I had all my friends were farmers and ranchers. My dad had a corporate job. And this one guy that I worked with, and I drove trucks on the weekends. I love equipment, loved semis, and loved it, but didn't see that as a path to wildly success that I'd envisioned at a young age. He kept trying to get me to go to work for him, and I said, "Man, I can't get in the trucking business. I'm educated." And he said, "Well, no, you need to try it." So I kept trying to find a job and trying to find a job after I lost that first one, unsuccessful. And then finally one day he told me, he said, "If you'll come to work for me and help me, I'll help you start your own deal." And so I rationalized at that point, because I was bitter, freshly minted college degree, been fired after only 6 months, and I was bitter. And I thought, you know what, if I start my own deal, I'll always have a job. I may not have a check, but I'll always have a job. And I think with a lot of things, when you're young and naive, you do stupid stuff because it seems idealistic. It just happened to work for me.
That to me is, I love hearing that, because I think that everybody thinks that there's this path to entrepreneurship, Lynn, where it's going to be like people are going to welcome you in and, hey, come on, let's go out there and do. Everybody's got that story where they find themselves without a job, something happened, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to go out there and do it. And, because for me, it's like I've been praying for a long time, Lynn. I want to be my own boss. I want to do my own thing. And, the term "the Lord works in mysterious ways" never resonated with me as much as it did then in 2020, when I found myself out of a job at the beginning of COVID and nobody was hiring. And I was like, there's your opportunity, right? Go out there and build it. You've been praying for it. You've been wanting it. Here's your opportunity. Go out there and build it. And I haven't looked back ever since, right? Like, it's not easy. There's no straight line. It's probably a Rubik's Cube every day. You finally get one side of it all matching colors, and then everything else behind it is all in a different direction out there. But I look at kind of a lot of the parallels to that and what we're seeing out here right now, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of headwinds that are hitting the brokerage industry. But I think that we would all be naive to think that there isn't going to be something that's going to pose as a challenge or a risk out there in your business or your book of business as you're trying to build it up. So, like, what were some of those early lessons that you had where you didn't think you were going to survive, but by sheer force and will and, call it what you want, that you've overcame that to kind of, get through those early wins?
Well, I don't know that there's any one thing I could point to, but I will agree with you. I am a believer, and faith had a big role in a lot of stuff. And so, God puts a lot of opportunities in front of you, but sometimes he'll put multiple ones, and sometimes he'll close all the doors and there won't be one open. So you got to kind of navigate through that. But so I actually started a trucking company in '88. And that was the deal that my friend said, "If you'll come help me, I'll help you start your own deal." So I could talk to customers. And so this is in 1988. I could talk to customers. I had a little bit of a salesman attitude about me, but this was before Excel. And I think we were using a spreadsheet called Quattro. And I was kind of being an engineer background, I'm computing out of route miles. And so I'm doing a lot of metrics on the trucking business. And so that's kind of the way it was. And so I just totally stumbled into the brokerage side of it, Chris. So from '88 to the middle '90s, I'm running trucks, and that teaches you a lot. That's got to be one of the hardest businesses in the world, is owning trucks. I think I probably got up to 40 trucks at my peak. And then in the middle '90s, I had a customer say, "Would you come do everything for me?" So that was my first foray into managed transportation, or brokerage, if you will. And I never will forget this. I looked at this guy and I said, "I don't have enough trucks to do everything you need." And he said, "Well, don't you have buddies? Can't you figure it out?" Yeah. What he was saying was that my ability to work through his network was better than his people. And I think that was always a flaw of mine in one way, is that I was always trying to do the right thing. I was trying to get the least landed cost regardless.
Yeah.
But anyway, one thing led to another. But I will say this one thing that probably helped me more than anything from an entrepreneurial viewpoint is, if you burn all your exit bridges, you have no way to go, but you've got to make it work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've done twice in my life, and it worked both times. And I'm not sure I want to burn any more bridges, but those two times it worked.
It is true, right? Like and there's something to be said. I don't know if enough people realize the power of having your back against the wall and your only option is to figure it out. I think that at times, I mean, I talk about this. The hardest part for me in business, Lynn, it's not the work, it's the development of systems in the anticipation that your great idea is actually going to pay off in 6 months, right? And because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes where, you're talking about how your customer at the time that said, "Hey, Lynn, I need you to take on everything right now." And I'm sure you've learned a lot, like the way that you approach business and approach your customers back then, probably vastly different than how you guys do now, because you have all of that data that has come through to help you guys develop the best system of, if you guys are approaching a new prospect who doesn't have managed transportation, now you guys have probably a list of 5 to 10 qualifying questions that identifies exactly what angle you guys are going to take to go in there. But that didn't just happen overnight, right? Like that was a lot of trial and error that comes on. And you're probably still experiencing trial and error of some sort to perfect that product to go in there to actually have a pretty seamless rollout.
Yeah, I don't think you ever quit learning. And by the way of history and kind of catching it up to date, so in the middle 90s, I started doing some managed transportation as a carrier. And it wasn't until 99 that I started this company, NT Logistics. So that's been 27 years ago. So 38 years in this industry. And, I continue to learn something each and every day. And it's almost scary when you sit back. And I mean, I remember when DAT was dial a truck.
Yeah.
I remember literally in the late 80s having empty trucks in Arizona, and you would call. And, it's changed so very, very much. That was the early stages of deregulation and just everything that's transpired and the way technology has evolved and the way technology has made us better. But, collectively, any opportunity that we get to add value to whatever we're working on, it just continues to elevate the industry, elevate, everything.
So how is managed transportation different from traditional freight brokerage in that sense?
Well, no, it's interesting that in light of everything that's happened over the last couple of months, I can tell you, because it's been a very painful lesson. So in our managed transportation business, we are the outsourced provider for middle market companies, typically in the CPG space. So we are responsible for every bit of their inbound and outbound transportation. And so one of the great things about that is it's long-term contractual business, and I've got customers I've had for 20 years plus that we manage their networks for them. One of the downsides of it is, so let's say 6 months ago I was guaranteeing pricing for a year. So you can imagine how ugly that's been for a while. And when I say ugly, if you're charging somebody $2,000 for a move and you're paying $3,500 to do it, you still have to do what you say you're going to do. And that hurts a little bit. So you'll hear that a lot in the managed trans or some of the bigger brokerages that they've got fixed rates for long term. But one thing that we've always done, Chris, and you can never change this, is you've always got to do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, that's detrimental.
How do you get to that point, right? Because I look at it where that's so because in freight brokerage, Lynn, I don't care. Like, you strip everything away, we're all offering the same product, right? Like, we're all offering our ability to make their supply chain run a little bit more seamless. But there is that fine line that comes in, and it's mainly around money, right? It's on that transaction where it's like, are you willing to lose money on this load to service the account, or are you only a fair weather partner where you're only there when you're making money? And then if you're not making money, you start to let things slide. And, because for me, it's like our standards is like, when I quote you a rate, I'm going to get it done no matter what. Even if I lose $1,000 on that shipment, I am going to honor that because it's not your fault that I quoted that load wrong. Now, I'm not in the managed transportation space. We're in the, we're out there just doing your traditional freight brokerage. But I think a lot of people find themselves in that, like, as long as it's working out, they're great, they're the best. But as soon as there's a little bit of adversity that comes their way, then all of a sudden their phones don't work anymore, their emails don't work anymore, they're not able to execute upon it. How have you been able to instill that where it's like, hey, we have to honor our word? Because it's easy to sit here in a controlled environment and say it. It's not easy when you might be losing 25, 30 grand a month on an account just to keep moving their freight.
Well, you have to have a long-term view, and you have to have a pretty good balance sheet, depending on what you can. Imagine pricing something for 6 months, 400 shipments for 6 months. So you factor that in, and you factor that risk in. But that kind of, I guess that's the ante that gets you to the table. And then we've been wildly successful over the years, Chris, by trying to add value at every single turn. So if you would have told me 28 years ago that I was going to have a whole slew of data analysts sitting there doing nothing but building Power BI dashboards that show least landed cost by pound by facility, I would have said, I don't think we'll ever evolve to that. So, we've been very, very fortunate in that through all the years, we've been partners with our managed transportation customers, and we're doing different things. We're looking at networks. We're looking to optimize networks. One of the things that we spend a lot of time on is especially in the CPG space, where you've got stuff going to the grocery retailers, and it's not a full truckload. Maybe it's 4 pallets, 3 pallets, 6 pallets, maybe it's refrigerated, whatever. But we're doing deep dive analytics on minimums and frequencies. And we have this saying that sales, logistics delivers, and then the cost is what the cost is. So we think engineering wise about networks. And one thing that we always say, one thing I've said from the beginning, is networks degrade over time. And so, anything we can do to tighten that network up, because it's a game of pennies in the CPG space, and that's the world we live in. So there's kind of two views, Chris. There's the macro view of got to load, get a truck, and figure out how cheap you can do it or whatever. And then there's the relationship. We want to use the same carriers. We've got to provide amazing service that's demanded in the CPG space. And then on the back end, turn around and create metrics through your Power BI dashboards that you can send throughout an organization, 7 layers deep, so that everybody sees the value.
Yeah, I don't know if enough people really comprehend the downstream effects of their choices as a broker when it comes to like working with their customers. Talking about CPG, in the CPG space, primarily going into some of these large grocery retail distribution centers that are out there, and the financial implications of a late truck that come downstream. It's not just the fact that they get potentially fined by having a late truck. It's the fact that if their product isn't on the shelf and it's not selling, they get kicked out of those retail locations, right? So it's like sometimes as a broker, you might be sitting back and thinking about that one load as hey, I don't want to lose money on this one, and it protects your balance sheet in the short term, but you could be costing that customer's shelf space at some of these large retail stores that are out there. So it is that downstream effect where it's like, sometimes it's that short-term pain of doing the right thing, because that's our number one core value in our business. It's do the right thing. And that can be a subjective statement, but Lynn, I think every human being inherently knows what to do and what not to do in every situation that they're involved in. So it's like when you're going out there and you're selling that, like you can bring that managed feel to every customer of every walk of life out there. And that's what we try and do inside of our operation, where it's like every shipper that we work with, every customer that we work with has 100 competitors in their space, minimum. I'm just arbitrary example. They all have competitors out there. And if you think for 1 second, you not calling ahead and, communicating with the receiver or the shipper, whoever isn't associated with your customer, that's not going to make them think, maybe I should go to somebody else to get this. That gets all tied in there. And there's just a bunch of little micro decisions that add up to the real value that comes along with it, where I think that's one thing that stops a lot of people is what, maybe if I go with that carrier, yeah, I'm going to make a little bit more money. I got that bad feeling that I probably shouldn't work with them, but it's not the right decision for your customer.
Yeah, competition makes us all better. It makes everything, and that's one of the great things about being in the greatest country ever, is competition makes us all better. But if you'll think of, we throw out the term managed transportation a lot, Chris, but think of it this way: as the outsourced transportation provider, the outsourced transportation team, the outsourced transportation professionals that are part of the manufacturing company or the distributing company, such as that. So my guys will be on weekly or monthly reviews, looking at cost to serve, metrics, on-time delivery percentages. So it's more of a holistic view. A lot of times we work with some real estate companies as well, helping them look at some larger manufacturers. So imagine if you're distributing some product throughout the entire United States, where are the best 3 places to put warehouses? Where's the best place to put manufacturing? and then run that out over a 5 or 10-year time period. And then once you've done that, say, okay, what happens if fuel goes to $6? How does it impact that? What can we do to use intermodal to help? Just there's so many different caveats or knobs that you can tweak to optimize networks. We even do some traveling salesman algorithm. How do you, if you're going to go to 3 Walmart's distribution centers, there's 49 or 50 of them. If you're going to do 4 pallets to each and you want to do 5 stops, how do you route it? And you may take 15-18% out of the cost. It really gets deep in the weeds if you let it, which is where we enjoy living.
Yeah. How has everything changed fundamentally now when you guys are going in there and selling this managed piece, but with this ruling with Montgomery that came down in the Supreme Court? How are you guys delivering that sense of security to your guys as customers now and really working with them through all of this? How has your guys' business changed since then?
I don't know that it truly has. I would suggest to you that we've been thinking about this since the beginning. We've always said one of our value adds is we are going to only use safe carriers as best as we can determine what safe is. So it's not got a load, find a truck. It's you have a bunch of loads. You have loads over the next 3 years. You've got a network you're responsible for. You've got a balance sheet that you're putting up to execute on it, and you're going to find the best carrier long term for this provider. So we, in that sense, we think as though we are a professionally managed group of folks that are managing the distribution network for a shipper.
How is this tying in now to your new role at the TIA? How are you going to be able to help this all out to really make all the members stand out? Because I think that one of the big pushes, as a member of the TIA, and I think I don't think enough brokers leverage that relationship with the TIA if they are a member at the levels that they should of what goes into being a TIA broker. Because I think that there's 2 different classifications of providers out there now. And with a lot of this stuff that's coming down the pipe, Lynn, I think that now more than ever is when you need to have that rallying cry out there about hey guys, we're different. And here's why we're different. You can't just sign up to be a member of the TIA and go out there and do a bunch of unethical things, right? There's a code of ethics that comes along with it. There's a code of conduct, and you get kicked out if you don't do that stuff. Do you think now that might be an initiative of, from with what you're doing at the TIA? Hey guys, this is what we've identified. We should start really marketing ourselves as this type of provider out there.
So let me set the stage just a little bit for you, Chris. I think last I heard there's 10,000 licensed brokers in the United States, and maybe there's more. Maybe I'm missing my numbers because I don't live in that world. But there's roughly 1,400 licensed brokers that are TIA members. So our job as a trade association is to provide everything that we can to those folks to help them be successful in their business. So we started our conversation talking about having your back to the wall or what's going to ensure your success in this industry. And we love this industry. I love this industry. It's been very, very good to me. You heard me talk about that on the stage in Phoenix when we were together for our annual convention. But I think as chairman, I've always told we've got the greatest staff in the world, and we've got Chris Burrows is an amazing president that was at the right place at the right time for our industry. And I tell Chris every opportunity, I say, Chris, we do charge dues and we have to. Our job is to give 10x value against those dues. And so, we do that. We're working now on some more tools to help us understand, in light of Montgomery, how we properly select a carrier. Last week, I was at the USDOT meeting with Director Bars and his team, and we were talking about the modus that's coming out and some of the issues they're facing. I will tell you this, and I'm totally in the weeds, so bring me back, but I met with the previous administration's FM CSA, and I will say this: it's day and night difference. These guys are genuinely have skin in the game, and they're genuinely trying to make some changes, and so I'm encouraged by that. But as a trade association, our job is to add value anywhere we can. You talk about the ethics. We continue to put more teeth in our ethics, and we continue to put brand recognition to the TIA for those 1,400 brokers, so that when you go out to your shipper, you can proudly say, I'm a TIA member. One of the first things that we did years ago was increase the bond level. So, we've got $250,000 performance bonds now when the minimum is $75,000. So, I could talk for 45 minutes of all the things that we've done. we continue to look for ways to add value to your membership and all our members.
Mm-hmm. What is something that you would like to like? I don't know any other way to say this, Lynn, but like, what do you think more TIA members need to take a part of to really get the message across the board, whether it's in DC, regional conferences, maybe at the local legislation level? What more, what does that path look like for TIA members?
It's like anything else. It's like anything else. You can probably, you may or may not be able to tell by looking, but I don't go to the gym very often. But having a gym membership does absolutely nothing. I did that for a couple of years, but then when I started going, it made a difference. So I would akin our TIA membership to the same thing. Get involved. Get on a committee. Get involved. Do everything that you can. And I think there's no better opportunity than our fly-in. In light of Montgomery and in light of everything that's coming up, once a year we gather on Capitol Hill. And this year it's September 14th through the 16th. And it is a blast. I always enjoy it. So I don't know if I told you this, but I grew up in a real small town. So to think of me being able to walk into a congressman's office or have a meeting with a senator, it was unreal for me the first time. And now I do it every year. So I would invite anybody that can to come and stand in front of those people, because I didn't know they wanted to hear from us, but they do, because you know what we are? We're voters, and voters matter. I think we matter. They act like we matter. So I don't know if we do or not, but they act like we do. But that's your opportunity to go talk about your business, talk about your employees, and talk about the things that are impacting your business. And there's no better opportunity. Chris and the TIA staff do an amazing job of setting up the meetings, and we got some really, really great speakers that come. It's your opportunity to get in front of the people that make a difference. And you know what, Chris? I have as much fun just like walking between meetings with folks like you, and reach over to the side and say, "So this happened to me. What did you do when that happened?" So it's a little of both.
Mm-hmm. I to kind of tie in what you said a little bit earlier there about the current administration's, FMCSA and DOT, like I've never seen this much activity this quick, right? Like it always sounds great. There's always a bunch of great talking points that are out there, but there's no action. It seems that there's a lot of action now. And I think that if you want to see more action done, it is going to take, everything starts and stops in DC, right? Like we want to sit here and talk about, anything other than the fact that you got to get boots on the ground out there and get in front and have your voice be heard. I'm a firm believer that we still have a voice in this country, and we still have a voice in the industries that we work in, but we also have an obligation to have those voices be heard out there. And if you can get on the ground and go do it, you got to go do it, and set those meetings up. And I think I'm from a small town too, and I'm from a town of 1,800 in northern Wisconsin that has 1 stoplight, 4 churches, and 7 bars. Like your prototypical small town USA out there. And I think you have to understand that the second we as a society or as an industry say my voice doesn't matter, then the people, the fraudsters, the chameleon carriers, they start to win at that point, right? So it's like we see all of this stuff. There's no better data point out there than the people that are on the front lines identifying all of these things. Like this is how we bring it up and funnel it up, and then we apply that bureaucratic pressure, you could call it, to get the changes done that we want.
Yeah, and it's just a continual, I've learned it's a continual effort. The more we go, the louder we become, and the more I can tell that they hear us and the more that they listen. And, that's what gets stuff done. I mean, you can see some of the silly things that have happened in our country over the last 60 or 70 years, and it's because those were the ones that were the loudest up there. So I think in a nutshell, it's time for us to get loud. We've got the fraud that goes on, the theft that goes on, and we're starting to get some traction there. As a TIA, we've rallied the FBI, and, we've got FBI contacts now, and they've really helped us make a dent in that. When we get together, we've got a tremendous number of partner vendors to TIA that are the vendors to my business and your business, and they'll be at the fly-in with us, and they're screaming and ringing the same bell, and so they listen. And it shocked me to learn that they listen. And then I'll leave this with you. This is one of my coolest things that I saw firsthand. They say politics and politicians in Washington, D.C. is the only place that the ugly and untalented can be famous. And when you go up there, you see that firsthand.
Oh man, I don't have enough time to really run through that comment there, but I'll just say we're aligned on that, Lynn. And I look at with where things are. I think that now more than ever, if you sit back and you treat this industry as a profession, right? Like I know that there's a lot of professionals out there. We have to collectively come together to stop a lot of this stuff, because I think, that's where it's all going to come in from the ground level. And I have a great partnership with the NMFTA as well. And they have a big fraud presence as well out there. And again, it's like when you're on the front lines and you see something, you got to say something, right? Like we got to stop thinking that we're the only ones being affected and we don't want people to know about it, so we can't talk. Like I think the more we talk, the more we can get ahead of a lot of this stuff and curb a lot of this stuff. And it all starts with you using your voice.
And we're starting to get some momentum. I mean, over the 10 years I've been going up there, our groups get larger and larger. We get better and better meetings. Last year I wasn't there, but we had meetings with both of our Texas senators. And so we're starting to get some traction. So, I would urge all your listeners, if you're not a TIA member, become a TIA member. Most importantly, if you are a TIA member, join us September 14th to the 16th in DC. And man, it's amazing. It's amazing what people stand in there, politely addressing these people. And I'm serious, they are kind of movie stars, because if you watch Fox News or CNN and you walk down the halls of Congress, you see them and you're pointing at them. And I've had my picture taken with 2 different Speaker of the Houses, which is pretty cool. And some of the famous congressmen and congresswomen. It's a pretty cool deal.
Dude, I love it. Lynn, thank you. I knew this was going to fly by, and you're right. We could have gone on for another hour at minimum here. How does anybody reach out to you, though, to find out more about what you got going on?
I don't know. You didn't prepare me for this. We've got a website, I'm told, www.ntlogistics.com or TIA.org. Certainly, man, I really, really hope you'll let TIA help you and improve your businesses. I know you have.
No, definitely. Lynn, thank you so much for your time. That's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moves.